Can't visualize it.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our annual Town Hall on Accessibility. My name is Andrew Taylor. I'll be your MC for the night. I'm also chair of the Halifax Regional Municipality's Accessibility Advisory Committee. We advise the Regional Council on the impacts of municipal policies, programs, and services on persons with disabilities. I will call this meeting to order at 6:30 on the button. Good job. All right. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located on, and I apologize if I mispronounce these words, Mi'kmahi, the unceded ancestral land of the Mi'kmaq people. As we gather from our respective places in Mi'kmahi, we extend our gratitude to the traditional caretakers of this land, acknowledge the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory, and recognize that we are all treaty people. The Accessibility Advisory Committee's annual town hall serves as an opportunity for Halifax Regional Municipality business units to provide updates to the community regarding current accessible initiatives in the municipality and hear feedback from residents. That would be you. Representatives joining us for this year's meeting will provide updates on current projects and provide an overview of successes and challenges faced by the municipality with respect to disability and accessibility. Upon completion of these updates from business units, the floor will be turned over for questions and to provide feedback to our panelists on the topics they have raised. With the support of the Halifax Public Libraries, this year's meeting is taking place in a hybrid manner. We are thrilled to have participants join us here at Polo Regan Hall, and as well as the satellite viewing locations at the Tiedowns and Muscat Harbor Libraries, as well as virtually on Zoom and on YouTube. Questions will be facilitated both from the floor of the hall here and virtually through Zoom. A reminder that in order to participate in the virtual Q&A, attendees must be joining this meeting through Zoom. If you have not registered in advance, the registration link is available on both the agenda page in the description in the YouTube live stream, as well as halifax.ca/accessibility town hall. As accessibility is a priority for the town hall, all three in-person viewing locations for this evening's event have sighted guides available. If you require assistance moving throughout the room once you have arrived, please raise your hand and a volunteer will come assist you. The live stream has both card capturing services and ASL interpretation, which are being sent live from Palo Regan Hall. The feedback and questions from tonight will comprise a report that will be passed along to the Executive Standing Committee. Participants are encouraged to share their feedback so that the report is truly representative of the thoughts and concerns of the community. Should a participant have a question that is unable to be answered by our panelists, please leave the contact information at the Q&A table, which is over here, or in the Q&A function on Zoom, and HRM staff will follow up with you by email or by phone. We will now move on to the staff overview of accessibility challenges, successes, and challenges portion of the meeting. Each staff member will provide an overview of the work within their unit and be available to take questions from participants after they have presented. Summaries of each presentation are now available on the agenda page for the event. Our first speaker is Melissa Myers, Accessibility Advisor, Office of Disability and Inclusion, African Nova Scotian Affairs Integration Office.
Thank you so much, Sheryl.
So if you're interested, my name is Melissa Myers. I am the Accessibility Advisor for HRM. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what diversity and inclusion has been doing in the past year. So HRM's accessibility strategy was passed on May 18, 2021. The strategy contains 30 action items to support the municipality's goal of becoming accessible by 2030. The strategy document outlines their starting date and deadline for each individual action plan. The strategy is available on the Halifax website for public viewing. As a result of the accessibility strategy being passed, we formed a committee comprised of representatives from each HRM business unit. The committee is responsible for actioning the 30 action items in the accessibility strategy. This includes passing along important information to their prospective business units and leading accessibility initiatives. Alongside of passing the strategy, D&I over the past year have provided learning opportunities for HRM staff. And we've done this in two main ways. One is we have a new corporate accessibility training that HRM staff can participate in. And then the second is we've been fortunate to have accessibility-related speaker sessions. From the speaker session, members of the disability community, including representatives from local organizations, educated HRM staff on specific topics related to accessibility and the disability community. The corporate accessibility training provides a more general overview of accessibility, including best practices for the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Our next speaker is Darren Young, Acting Director, Corporate Facility Design and Construction, Corporate and Customer Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Andrew said, I'm the Acting Director, Facility Design and Construction. We're responsible for delivering the capital budget on all related projects. So this is the capital budget that's approved by Regional Council, annually in around the April timeframe. And we have multiple clients and stakeholders, and one of our major ones is the Accessible Advisory Committee, and I sit with that committee and meet monthly to give them an update on projects. So we have a meeting in a couple of years. I've got a few projects to cover that we've done. So our successes between 2020 and 2021, the new St. Andrews Center is open, complete, it's fully accessible. Everything's on one level, universal washrooms, change rooms. We've got an accessible community kitchen, so a lot of nice features in that building. A bunch of other buildings we did, Beasley Fieldhouse and grandstands. We just redid that building. It's ready for the Indigenous Games next year. It's got 3 levels of different viewing planes for accessibility and an announcer's booth at the top that's actually fully accessible. Penhorn Wake washroom was recently completed. That's again another fully accessible. We've added beach mats there as well, so the user can come. There's an adult change table. You can get ready, go to the beach, and enjoy the sand in your toes. We also did accessible beach mats at Chocolate Lake this year. Another building that we're in the midst of right now is the Fort Needham Park Washington building, and this is at the top end of the park, and it'll be it's scheduled to be completed in the next month, so we'll leave it open at that. Projects scheduled are Qantas Graham's Grove in Dartmouth. That's just under construction and expected to be open for Canoe 2021 or 2022. Woodside Ferry Terminal is currently under renovations and expect to be open in early 2022 as well. We just modernized the elevators at the Zatzman Sportsplex. Did a new accessible lift at the Needham Community Center to access the pool level. New access ramps at Chocolate Lake Community Center and Knapp Athletic Club, in addition to the Sheet Harbor Library. Let's see, what else? New outdoor libraries and accessible decks at the Musquodoboit Library, which we have some viewers watching today from. And we've also, continuation that we've been doing for about 8 years now is automated door program, where we try to upgrade as many as we can to allow that additional service coming in the door. We have 2 members of our team that are currently undergoing Rick Hansen certification. Myself, I'm Rick Hansen certified for design services. We've started putting adult change tables in all our public facilities, and we're working with the government of Nova Scotia and the members of the technical committee on developing the standards and currently doing some audits of our facilities to get ready for 2030. I think I might have jumped into my notes in the head. Some of the challenges we've had is we're renovating the existing buildings to meet CSA due to physical limitations is a large challenge for us. We also have a large building inventory, probably in the range of 250 buildings that we're trying to audit and get ready to make fully accessible by 2030. And some other challenges, capacity to deliver. So we have a large, again, portfolio and a small team. There's about 8 project managers in our department. And currently with COVID and that, there's some limitations with construction industry personnel and the supply chain. So that's another challenge we're seeing today. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Next we have Kim Jellymore, Director of Customer Contact Centers, Corporate and Customer Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd like to just give a bit of an overview about the customer contact centers. We're made up of 2 distinct customer service channels, one being the corporate 311 contact center, and then 3 in-person customer service centers. One location that is dedicated and can be accessed by dialing 311, which is the customer contact center. And then anywhere in the municipality, you can reach us via a toll-free number outside the core. The other 2 locations are designed as full in-service customer service centers, and then we have 1 location which provides reduced in-service, in-person service in Musquodoboit. In 2020, the Customer Contact Center handled in excess of 340,000 telephone calls and over 14,000 emails. We processed 40,000 transactions and over $100 million in revenue for payments of various things, which I'll identify in a few moments. The Customer Contact Center provides services and customers with easy access to information via phone, in person, and online. 311 is the single point of contact for customer inquiries regarding Halifax municipal information and services. The Customer Contact Center is currently open 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and on Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 5:30. 311 currently only closes 2 days a year, and that is December 25th and January 1st. And after the center closes, our after-hours urgent calls, such as traffic, road operations, facility animal services, anything that's a safety issue are directed to our after-hours outsourced answering service partners. So through a partnership we have with language services vendor, the center is able to support customers' inquiries in over 150 languages. In November of 2020, we also introduced telephony email to enable 311 agents to deliver services more effectively to meet the diverse needs and expectation of our customers. This includes the emails now come into our telephony system, very similar to the telephone calls that come in, and they go into a queue where all agents are able to access them immediately and reply to any inquiries. We have TTY capability currently. However, we are researching the future addition of Canada Video Relay Service and chat to further enhance our accessibility service. The customer service centers are open Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, and as mentioned, we have two full service centers. One's located at Alderney in Dartmouth, and one located at Bayers Road in Halifax. The partial service location is in Musquodoboit and is managed by Recreation. The customer service centers handle payment processing for property tax, Halifax Transit, passes, water bills, that type of thing. And they also provide information for affordable access, parking permits, grant programs, alarms, transit passes, and schedules. And all of our customer service centers accommodate accessibility needs. For further information on any of these services, please feel free to visit halifax.ca or call one of our agents at 311 who would be more than pleased to help you with any questions or to provide information on any services. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Our next speaker is Sheryl Chapel, Supervisor, Customer Service and Engagement, Halifax Transit. Sheryl is joined by David Nanto, Supervisor, Bus Operations. He will be available for questions during the Q&A portion of the night.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sheryl Chapel. I'm Supervisor of Customer Support and Engagement for Halifax Transit. At Halifax Transit, our mission is to work together to provide a safe, reliable, and sustainable transit system for all. This requires consistent attention to accessibility issues and a passionate commitment to continuous improvement in this area. I'm really happy to be here tonight to share some of the exciting progress Halifax Transit has made to address improved accessibility for all of our customers. I'll start with some infrastructure updates. Bus stop accessibility is an ongoing priority aimed at improving accessibility for customers. Each year, Halifax Transit installs concrete landing pads at bus stops, which allows the operator to deploy a ramp at the request of mobility-impaired passengers. In 2020, Halifax Transit installed 125 bus stop landing pads, and an additional 80 were installed in 2021. Work is continuing on in the month of November as well. This brings the total percentage of fully accessible bus stops in the Halifax Transit network to approximately 68%, which includes an accessible path to the bus stops. Extensive Woodside Ferry Terminal renovations, which began in October 2019, are scheduled for completion in January 2022. The newly renovated facility will feature universal washrooms, additional escalators traveling in both directions, and the replacement of one small elevator with two much larger ones, which is creating a more accessible experience for all transit users. On November 22nd, the first phase of the new West Bedford Park and Ride will open as part of the Moving Forward Together plan, which is Halifax Transit's long-term plan to make our transit network faster, more reliable, and easier for people to understand. The new Park and Ride, which will include a terminal, heated shelters, better signage, and electronic message boards, will offer improved access to transit services and a new commuting option for passengers in the area. We've also made some progress in the area of public communications and education. In August 2021, Halifax Transit publicly launched the Transit Code, a guide for passenger conduct and policies on Halifax Transit. The Transit Code, developed in collaboration with members of the municipality's Diversity and Inclusion team, defines the organization's expectations of passengers when traveling on transit. The goal of the Transit Code is to ensure a safe, courteous, and respectful experience for everyone traveling on transit. Important transit code themes ranging from serious topics such as anti-racism, anti-harassment, and anti-bullying to policy themes such as courtesy seating, accessibility policies, and service animals will be communicated via integrated communications channels, including transit shelters, bus ads, digital advertising, social media, and terminal pop-up events. Many of you may have already seen the first campaign that is currently in market, focusing on anti-racism. Community education is another priority for us. Halifax Transit is developing new community education programs to reduce barriers to public transit and assist riders in understanding how to use the transit network. For newcomers in the area, language is often a challenge. In November 2020, Halifax Transit launched a series of printed guides and videos in 11 different languages to help newcomers navigate the transit system. In January 2021, targeted public engagement was conducted with organizations serving newcomers to determine how the organization can better meet the needs of this growing community. An ongoing newcomers community travel training program is currently being developed with an anticipated launch in the spring of 2022. The number of newcomers accessing Accessibus services is also increasing, and options are being explored to address language barriers that they face. Service changes booklets for the upcoming November 22nd service changes have also been developed and are being distributed in 10 different languages. Halifax Transit is also developing a travel training program for accessible transit customers who use both Halifax Transit's Accessibus service and conventional buses. The program will include one-on-one training as well as regularly scheduled education events hosted by transit staff throughout HRM, which will include the presence of a bus, presentations, demonstrations, and materials for distribution. For some current Accessibus clients, conventional transit can offer more freedom and flexibility than Accessibus, and we want people to feel comfortable with this option, empowering them to decide whether this is a right choice for them. For many years, the municipality has heard from residents and visitors about the lack of accessible taxis for hire, making spontaneous travel a challenge for people requiring these vehicles. Due to the high cost of buying, maintaining, and operating accessible vehicles, the number of accessible taxis in HRM has declined dramatically from 56 in 2015 to 11 today. On February 23, 2021, Regional Council gave approval for Halifax Transit to contract an accessible taxi-style service. Under this new program, the municipality will pay a fee for the contracted company to provide an accessible taxi-style service, while users will pay the standard taxi rate for trips. This new program will add 10 new accessible taxis in Halifax and provide additional travel options for our accessible transit clients. Accessibus has made progress with its implementation of the continuous improvement plan, with daily attention to waitlist, monthly review of schedules to look for efficiencies, and more frequent batching of trip requests to fill in spaces as cancellations are made. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, transit ridership is down across the country. However, I am pleased to share with you that Halifax Transit's Accessibus service is currently back to 85% pre-COVID-19 trip requests. Technology upgrades are underway for Accessibus vehicles, including the installation of mobile data terminals, which will allow for real-time information such as on-time performance, same-day scheduling opportunities, fare management, better scheduling based on continuous updating of travel times and load times. 10 new buses are being added to the Accessibus fleet next year. To support Halifax Transit's community education program, a new mobile supervisor will be recruited in the new year to provide enhanced travel training for persons with disabilities. On behalf of all my transit colleagues, thank you for the opportunity to share these exciting initiatives underway to improve accessibility for Halifax Transit's customers. We welcome any feedback and suggestions you may have to help support a safe, accessible, and inclusive transit experience for all. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Cheryl. Next, we have Stephen York, Superintendent, Road Operations and Construction, Transportation, and Public Works.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief update on some of the activities our Winter Operations Group has been working on since the last Advisory Committee Town Hall. The YMCA Senior Snow Program. We continue to provide funding to support this program, which provides residential snow removal for eligible seniors or persons with disabilities. Last year, 592 residents participated. Once accepted into the program, residents can expect clearing of the front or back steps, walkways, ramps, and access to a fuel tank if required. The program operates on a first-come, first-served basis. However, there have been vacancies during the 2020-2021 winter season. If anyone's interested in applying, the application window for this winter is now open, and more information, including eligibility requirements, can be found on our website or the YMCA Halifax website. Another thing we have going on is the big change to service standard for transit stops. So the previous service standard of 48 hours for snow clearing of transit stops has been changed. So starting this year, winter maintenance of all transit stops is to be completed within 24 hours after the declared end of a snowfall. This significant change in service should provide better accessibility for all transit users when embarking or disembarking following a snowfall. Our accessibility training. So we continue to facilitate this important training for staff and contractors who perform winter maintenance for the municipality. Created in conjunction with our Office of Diversity and Inclusion, the training takes participants through a number of mobility challenges that residents may face while trying to navigate city sidewalks and other infrastructure in the winter. Participants take turns maneuvering through a course using a few different types of mobility aids, such as manual wheelchairs, walkers, and white canes, to better understand how the built environment impacts their mobility. Obstacles are present, such as excessive salt on sidewalks and ramps, barriers representing snowbanks, crosswalk signals, buttons, etc., which create a real eye-opening experience for all. We continue to receive positive feedback from attendees who often didn't recognize the challenges that poorly maintained infrastructure created for residents with mobility challenges. And winter information. So as winter is quickly approaching, we'll be moving a link to our winter operations webpage to the halifax.ca homepage. There you'll find information on our service standards, interactive maps showing priority classifications for sidewalks and streets, answers to common questions, information on the senior snow program, and a guide to registering for HFX Alert, which provides winter parking ban notices. Thank you.
And thank you, Stephen. Our last speaker for this portion of the event is Jennifer Fisher. She is the Inclusion and Accessibility Specialist with Parks and Recreation. Tonight, Jennifer is joined by Cassidy Yochoff, Inclusion and Accessibility Specialist, who will be available to answer questions during the Q&A portion. Jennifer?
Thank you, Andrew. I am just going to review some of the successes and challenges that we've had with inclusion and accessibility with HRM Parks and Rec. That includes myself and Cassidy here. We are the accessibility and inclusion team. So some of the successes we've had, we've increased accessibility for newcomers through signage, interpreters, and diversity of staff. We've provided signage in various languages. We've hired interpreters to assist with language barriers for children coming into the programs for the first time. And we're working on increasing the diversity of the staff being hired. We're also working on increasing the diversity of our participant population through Parks and Rec, through marketing, creating welcoming environments, feedback sessions, and again, the diversity of staff and programming. The youth sector held an engagement session for Indigenous youth to contribute to help shape the youth service plan for 2021. We're also working to increase the physical accessibility of our facilities to include gender-neutral washrooms, as well as, which was mentioned earlier, the mobility chairs and mats at the beaches, and as well as accessible washrooms at some of our beach facilities. We're also working to decrease the barriers of financial considerations. We have the Affordable Access Program, which allows participants pending their annual income to have 50 up to 100% access to our programs throughout HRM. We also offer free lifeguard lessons at the HRM pools and free swim lessons in the summer at the beaches. We're also working to increase our community partnerships and provide programming throughout HRM through either rec centers or facilities. I can list a couple that we have done throughout 2021. In Bedford at LeBron, they've partnered with BMO and Easter Seals to provide a Learn to Sledge program. St. Andrews partnered with Parasports to do a Learn to Wheel and was also the pilot site for the first junior NBA wheelchair basketball program in Canada. Sackville Sports Stadium partnered with the Lakeshore Curling Club to provide wheelchair and stick curling. The Sackville Sports Stadium and William Spry Community Center have partnered with an organization called Playing and Learning Together to provide summer program as well as after-school programming for children and youth with disabilities. And Cassidy and myself are partnering with Dal to offer volunteer opportunities to health and human performance students. In terms of HRM Rec specific programs, we provide inclusive swim lessons. We have a Ready for Rec program that runs seasonally for children with disabilities, as well as we're partnering with iSands to provide newcomer programming. We've expanded our very popular Outdoor Rec Fun program specifically for these populations as well, for children with disabilities, and in collaboration with the Adventure Earth Center, iSands, to provide programming for newcomers. We provide one-on-one inclusion support for our programming throughout the year, and specifically in the summer of 2021, we were able to offer 111 children and campers support at our summer camps throughout HRM. Specifically at one of the camps this summer, LeBron, the summer staff wore clear COVID masks so the campers could see their mouths when receiving verbal cues. We're also hiring, there's myself and Cassidy, and we service HRM. We've split it up geographically, but in the winter of 2022, probably spring 2022, they'll be hiring another inclusion and accessibility specialist. In terms of challenges, our biggest challenge right now is staffing. We're working to build our capacity to have qualified casual staff that can provide the inclusion programming. So when a participant comes to, whether it's basketball or arts and crafts or a swim lesson, and they require support, we have a great need for that right now, and unfortunately we have a limited qualified staff. So that's one of the reasons we're reaching out to Dalhousie and some of the other universities throughout HRM to increase that staffing and make a more robust list of qualified staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening, and we'll be open for feedback and questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. So that concludes the staff overview portion of tonight's meeting. So we will now open the floor for the public to participate in this event. Questions will be split between in-person locations and those attending virtually. In this order, we're going to have one question from the hall here, one question from one of the viewing locations, and one question from a virtual attendee. Questions from the viewing locations and from virtual participants will be asked on your behalf by a staff member here at Paul Regan Hall. For participants who would like to ask a question here in the hall, there are two staff members who will be moving around the room with mics. Signify that you would like to ask a question by raising your hand, and a staff member will come to you. Please keep your mask on, remain at your seat, and staff will hold the microphone for you while you ask your question or provide feedback. Ground rules for this part of the meeting are as follows. One speaker at a time. Speaker will provide their name and community organization for the record. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes or less if you are attending here in the hall. And if you are attending it here in the hall, please use the microphone so that everyone can hear you. If you are not comfortable asking a question into a mic, attendees can visit the Q&A table and submit their question in writing. And we have a volunteer here who will assist you with writing if you need it. If you are attending a viewing location, please provide your question in writing to staff and they will submit it through the virtual Q&A. Questions submitted virtually in Zoom will be asked on your behalf by a staff member here at Paula Regan Hall. Please respect all points of view and the opinions expressed. If you wish to be contacted by staff for follow-up after the meeting, leave your name and contact information on a contact sheet, again, at the table, or one of our staff members at St. Helens or Muscataba Harbor Libraries, and they will reach out to you. Questions submitted virtually requiring follow-up will be addressed by email. We'll start with our first question here at the hall. Please state your name for the record.
I guess I might have two questions. My first question is Halifax Transit, the regular buses. I have some problems with them taking my groceries home. How many people have a bag on the back of their wheelchair to take stuff? I was put off the bus about a month and a half ago out at Bears Lake. And I had to get a woman to help me put the bag on my lap and wait another half an hour to get on another bus. I did receive a phone call back. They apologized it was a little too rough, but they also refused me the excess bus. What is any one of us in a wheelchair going to do 10 miles from town? If some bus driver figures it's illegal to have these bags on the back of our wheelchair. It's the only way I get my groceries or anything I buy from my apartment home. I usually go 3 or 4 times a week. I like the regular buses. I use the excess bus only for doctor's appointments because I am able to get around by using the regular buses. My other one is they bought a new bus for the city of Halifax, and you can't have a bag on the back of your wheelchair. It locks in, but only one wheelchair is on that bus. So I thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there anything further you want to add?
Does this work? Okay. I apologize if you had a bad experience on the Halifax Transit with your bag. There's a couple things that need to be noted. The tie-downs on the buses, when the chairs are backed into the back of the buses, the bags that are behind your chair prevent the operator from securing your chair down properly. It backs into the bus, and when the straps are put on, anything behind the chair is an inhibitant to us trying to strap that down. So it does cause a problem. I appreciate that. The bags would have to go onto the front of your lap if the operator can strap your chair down safely. If you are a client of Accessibus, that is one of the trips that you can use this for. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. We have different tie-down systems on our bus that allow you to carry the bags on the back of your chair because we're not backing into a back wall. It's a much safer trip, and it's certainly there for you at any time. But it comes down to a safety. The chair is backing in, strapped down with bags on the back of it. It's not safe.
You do it 50 times or 200 times, and you only get one bus driver, because I asked them, instead of hooking onto the plastic here, to hook on to the metal down here. There's a piece of metal down here, Usually normal can get here. And you can put that in there and back into that solid. And I've done it, I've been in this wheelchair 3 years. And just because I asked him not to hook it on here, because that's plastic up there, but this is metal. And it works perfect. It works so good, for a matter of fact, when they go to let me off, all I got to do is reach over here and press the button and I can let myself out. That's how good it works in the back in one. It works perfect.
So does that necessarily mean that the only time we can go to get any type of groceries, we would basically use Accessibus?
No, not at all. There are 3 different types of buses that have 3 different types of tie-downs. Not all of them are as efficient. And you were probably on a bus where it just did not, you were the back when you had to back in. Most of the other buses have the system where you can drive in forward and it wouldn't be a problem. Okay. But it just becomes down to a safety issue and a space issue. When you have the large bags on the back, it's difficult for us to strap down the chair securely and back you in safely.
But there's no restrictions when you're traveling on Accessibus to that, as long as if the driver doesn't have to handle the parcels. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, David.
Okay. Okay, we have a question, or do we have a question from a viewing location?
Hi there. We don't have one from the viewing locations, but I do have one that was submitted by someone at Paul O'Regan Hall via paper, so we could use that time now to ask this question. So this question is from Melanie Gaunt. Melanie mentioned that most of the pools are heated for those who have arthritis or similar conditions and tend to be too hot for those with autoimmune issues. The question is it possible for the city to have some pools not be heated and some still remain heated?
So I will say in my answer to this question, that is a question that I think would be best deferred to my manager, who is also the manager of aquatics, because I don't know a lot about specifics around pools and the temperature of pools. So I wouldn't feel confident in giving my answer in terms of why pools are heated to certain degrees and how those can be changed. We could certainly find out. So I don't know how you could, if that question wanted to be given to me, I could make sure that an answer was delineated to the person that asked it. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Okay, do we have any questions from our virtual attendees?
Oh, we do have one from our virtual attendees.
Okay.
So this question was submitted by Mary McDonald. Mary stated, they recently returned to Halifax after spending 2 years in Toronto. The quality and standard of the Wheel-Trans service offered by Toronto are vastly superior to Halifax's Accessibus. These inequities should not exist between 2 large cities. What concrete steps will HRM commit to bringing Accessibus up to acceptable standards? A person with disabilities deserve a better quality of life.
Thank you, Mary, for the question. I'm quite proud of the services that Accessibus provide. We provide over 600 trips a day. As we mentioned earlier, we're up to 85% of pre-COVID. Accessibus made us a number of improvements. We have the new buses coming in. We received, I believe it was 15 new buses this year. We have 10 new buses coming in next year. We've had great response to the new buses that we've had. There are more space. The seats now have shoulder strap seat belts for safety for our passengers. We also are moving forward next year with the final phase of our continuous improvement plan. That plan will see the introduction of mobile data terminals on the Accessibuses. The purpose for that is to provide real-time data information as to on-time performance, better scheduling. So when we experience anywhere from 85 to 100 cancellations a day, we'll have that information live so that when clients are wishing to book same-day trips, we'll be able to fit them into these cancellations. I appreciate the comments from Mary and would love to talk to her at any time about some of the improvements that she's seen in Toronto.
Thank you.
Okay, we are back to questions from the hall here, Paul Regan's Hall. Ian, you...
Hi, folks. I'm Jackie Purcell, and I live in a little community called Grand Desert, which is close to Porter's Lake. I'm also part of the Accessibility Committee. When we talk about transit, I guess my question is, and I hear new buses are coming and such, is there any plans in place to extend Accessibus services outside the immediate Halifax Dartmouth area? To my knowledge, the furthest that it goes in the rural area on the other side of the harbour is East Preston. I know of one individual who's traveled daily for years in and out of the city, could well use Accessibus, and it costs thousands upon thousands of dollars for that individual to get a taxi. So just again, wondering if there's any plans in place to extend out a little further than the Halifax Dartmouth area with Accessibus. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. Accessibus actually goes out to Porter's Lake. We go out on a daily basis. We have many clients, and I believe Melissa here is one of those clients that takes advantage of Accessibus. So we do go to Porter's Lake, to the mall there. So any persons living outside of that area, if they can get themselves to the mall, can use Accessibus. We also, so our services cover anywhere 1,000 meters within an existing bus stop. So, for instance, out to Tantallon. I live in Tantallon, and Accessibus goes out to the Sobeys Mall in Tantallon. We also go to Middle Sackville as far as the conventional bus would go, and we go as far as it's out to Beaver Bank. I'm just trying to think of the name of the road, where the community center is. We also go as far as the airport. So anything outside of those areas would be at the pleasure of council.
As a follow-up with that, when you say that we're within 1,000 meters, was it, of the bus stop?
That's correct.
I'm thinking in particular of community transit. Where I live, there's a community transit bus that goes in the morning and in the evening. First of all, I'm not aware that it went to Porter's Lake, so I'm glad to hear that, and I think maybe some people in the area should know that. But I don't know of anybody in the Grand Desert, Chesuncook area that is aware of the fact that Accessibus can go that far.
Yes, well, and Sheryl is here, so the person that would communicate that is here listening to you tonight. But if you remember when the community transit used to go out to Grand Desert, Accessibus would service out there as well at that time. When that service was stopped going to Grand Desert and went as far as Porter's Lake, we continued to service both the old number 7 highway, and we have a number of clients that live off the old number 7 highway and to Porter's Lake.
The community transit still is running through Grand Desert?
I don't think so.
Absolutely, Sarah saw it this morning. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. We question from a viewing location. Do we have any questions from our locations?
At this time, there is no question submitted from the remote viewing locations in Tantallon or Musquodoboit. But I do believe we have a virtual question. This one was submitted by Carol Arsenault. How did you decide 10 new accessible taxis was sufficient? What metrics did you use? When will these be in place, and how are they accessed?
Okay, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information on the accessible taxi. What I can tell you is that there was a request for proposals put out, and the successful tender, or the successful bidder, has 10 available taxis, and that's what's being signed in. If I'm not mistaken, there has been a coordinator for that program that's hired, and I can certainly direct that person to you. I just don't have all the answers for that question. It's a brand new program, and it was put out by an RFP.
Okay, thank you.
That was a virtual. Now we're back to the hall. Any questions here in the hall? Yes, sir.
I have a question. My name's Janet Dogville, and the swimming areas that have been discussed here, are they for all age groups? I guess I've been dreaming or sleeping, but I've never heard tell of them for summer. And where could I get all information on these? Thank you.
So we have 3 municipal pools that are run by HRM. So that would be the Captain William Spry Pool, the Needham Pool, and the Sackville Sports Stadium. And then in addition, we offer lifeguarded beaches in the summers. I could not tell you every single beach because there are many of them, but they are all listed on our website under swimming. And they have different levels of accessibility. There are a few that have the Moby mats, and then also have the accessible Moby chairs as well, or accessible chairs to be able to, if you're looking for those kind of additional accommodations. But the ones that are that have those accessibility kind of accommodations on them are listed on the website as well. So those are and then the pools offer, free swims, and they also have lessons, and they have different aquatic programs. And then at the beaches is just the swimming lessons.
I got no mic here. Oh, sorry. I was just going to add to that. There's actually a few partners that we also have pools with as well. Cold Harbor Place, Zatzman Sportsplex, Sackville Sports Stadium. Who am I missing? Outdoor pools in Cold Harbor and 10 Talon. I think I caught them all with that now. And then, of course, the Centennial Pool, which unfortunately is currently not open, but is an HRM facility run by one of our partners.
Okay. Are we getting any questions from our viewing locations?
Currently, there are none from the viewing locations.
Viewing and or virtual, anything?
We do have one from the virtual. This is a follow-up question from Mary McDonald regarding the Accessibus. Mary was wondering about concrete steps. Persons with disabilities deserve so much better. This is not a poor country, but the service offered by Accessibus puts persons with disabilities at a similar disadvantage.
I'm not quite sure what the question is. If it's around concrete steps, clients have options if they need assistance getting up concrete steps or locations that are not accessible. They're allowed to bring a companion or a personal care attendant. I'm not sure what more I can say about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any questions from here in the hall? Yes.
Thank you. The Coast just ran an article about 73 modular housing units rotting at a Halifax construction yard. I don't know whether anyone here can confirm whether those are the ones that the city is buying. And if so, or even if not, if there's another 73 units, what steps are going to be taken to make them physically accessible to people who will be using them, the people who are currently unhoused who will be using them? So 2 questions there.
Hi, Darren Young, Facility Design Construction. Those are not units that we're purchasing. I'm not sure what those ones are. The ones we are currently actively are due to arrive, I believe, in 2 weeks, but I have to confirm that. It's an active project we're going on, and I believe we do have 1 unit that's coming that is fully accessible. 1 unit that I think there's 7, but I'd have to confirm that number.
Thank you, Darren. I've discovered I've made a mistake. I have been asked to get you to state your name before you ask your question, and I dropped the ball on that one for the first time. So if you could, from here on out, please state your name before we start the question. Now, viewing questions, or viewing sessions or virtual attendees. Do we have any questions?
So at the moment, there are still none from our virtual viewing locations. However, we do have a question from Tammy Sampson via the Zoom Q&A. Tammy is wondering if there is an email address to contact 311.
There is. It's contact us at 311.halifax.ca. And it is on the halifax.ca website as well. And ever a question, simply call into 311 through the TTY unit or direct through 311, and we will answer those questions as well.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the hall. Any questions? Yes, your name, please.
Hi, my name is Darren McDonald. I've been a paraplegic for the last 23 years as a result of a military accident. I'm also a very licensed, independent driver. And I have a vehicle that has its transfer equipment on my driver's side. And there's a lot of spaces, accessible spaces in this city I cannot use because they do not have the stripe zone, access stripe zone. There needs to be a universal standard of a layout of accessible parking in this city. And I live near Bears Lake, and I can go from one end of Bears Lake to the other. The designs are different from every business. Some of them will have the bylaw signs, enforcement signs, and 90% of them do not have the strike zones. I can't use an accessible parking spot without the strike zone.
Yeah, no, you're correct. And so, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but for a number of years, there was no standard. There was different variations. So typically an accessible stall today would be, say, 10 feet wide and then would have an additional 6 feet access zone that you're talking about. Yeah. Well, people were building, instead of saving paint or a reason, they would go, well, let's just make the stall 12 feet wide, 15 feet wide, and then people just could get in and out where they needed to. Didn't work because cars would park in the middle, cars would park to the side and stuff like that. So you're right, they did develop a standard. It is now in the building code, but I think it's playing catch up. And so they're grandfathered in, for lack of better words, at all the sites. And I believe part of what the Nova Scotia directive is, and I'm going to shout out to Mr. Jerry Post is in the room, the former executive director, and some of the stuff that his work was doing is trying to get that, and by 2030, try to get that standard in and get rid of all these grandfathering clauses and get these done correctly. So on all my new designs that we're doing for our buildings, for HRM facilities, we are axing the access, and we're trying to do side by side. So if somebody needs to get from the driver's side, they can, and somebody wants to go from the passenger side, that capability is there with a shared access aisle between. I cannot comment on buildings that are not HRM facilities.
Well, just the last 24 hours, I noticed my vehicle insurance provider had moved the location to Washington Drive. And I was over just last evening. Okay, say that again. 24 hours ago, I found out my vehicle insurance provider had moved locations to Washmill. And I was over last night looking at that location. They have maybe 60 parking spots, but what I call the token 2, there's only 2 accessible parking spots in front of the building. And I saw a location at the far end that could be converted to accessible parking because they have a stripe zone. But the other 2, the regular ones, don't have them. So it's crazy.
Yeah, so the building code as it stands today, if I'm correctly, is 1 spot per 50 spots of parking. So that's why you're token 2, as you call it, because it's greater than 50 and under 100. What we're striving to is the Rick Hansen Foundation standard, and we're trying to make it more appropriate. So if there's a higher level of users that need that facility, yeah, there might be 100 park spots, but say we see regularly 10 and 20 users at that facility, then we want to make sure we've got 10 and 20 facilities. So I can speak to that from the municipal point of view. Unfortunately, that's a private citizen, and I have no enforcement on them. So
it's a strip mall in Washmill.
Yeah, private.
Brand new.
Yeah. Building code.
And
And so the problem is the building code is the minimal we can do, and unfortunately today that's the only thing that's enforceable. So.
I can go over Larry Utech, Tim Hortons, and McDonald's. Tim Hortons has
Okay,
120.
and I think we are running on question time, so if you want to talk afterward, that would be great.
We can chat more later.
Viewing locations, viewing or virtual. Any questions?
Hi there. This one is from Carol Arsenault. Is there any project for Accessibus to use debit or pull-down accounts like MacPass, or any planned discounts for folks with disabilities?
To the best of my knowledge, there's no plans for that for Accessibus. I know Halifax Transit itself is looking for a fare management system, and I'm sure that once that's rolled out, it'll become part of the Accessibus as well. But there is no plans right in the immediate future until such time as the fare management program is introduced.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, questions from here in the hall. Do we have any? Yes, and your name?
My name is Melanie Gaunt, and I would like to know why or suggest that there be anything that the city is involved in building. Why do you not just go straight ahead and go forward to the universal design rather than doing it poorly and then having to find the money and to do it again?
I'm not sure if I follow your question. So you're saying we've designed in the past to non-universal and then we've gone back. So most of those buildings are buildings that have been around for some time. So universal design principles probably been around for 10 years, but they're not mainstream, for lack of better words. Now, that is something we have adopted in the last 2 years, 100% across the board. So 100% design today, we're incorporating into universal design, and we're making sure that we're inclusive for all. So, and that's part of using the 7 principles of universal design, plus what the CSA standard is. In addition to that, above and beyond that, we've even incorporated some of the Rick Hansen Foundation accessibility certification components. So we're trying to take all 3 of those and build a better building at the end of the day. So again, talking about that minimal standard, and we're trying to jump it to that next level within HRM. So
We'd really like to see it be not an afterthought. We'd like universal design to be universal.
Yeah, so I encourage you, if you're in the Dartmouth area, to see some of the stuff we did over at the Beasley Field House or the Panhorn Washroom Building. If you're in Halifax, the new Fort Needham Washroom Building opening here in the near future. You'll see that we've really started to incorporate these things. And it's a learning curve. There's always going to be little challenges. The next big one that'll be a public building in 2 years' time will be the new Commons pool and pavilion building that's going to go with that. And we're really focusing heavily on our universal design principles on that one. And we, like you said, you want to do it right the first time and get it done, and there's actually cost savings to doing it that way as well.
Okay, viewing locations or virtual. Any questions from those?
This one is from Sean Clark. Sean asked, given the decentralization of hospital services, can I get an Accessibus to take me from my home in Dartmouth to my appointment in Cobequid with my children?
Yes, you can. The children thing, you're allowed 1 companion. You're allowed to bring more than 1 companion as long as there's room on the bus. But yes, it's a door-to-door service anywhere in HRM within 1,000 meters of any conventional transit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Returning to the hall. Any questions?
Rhonda Moulton is my name. The sidewalks, they do such a wonderful job patching the sidewalks, which doesn't do anything for us with wheelchairs because a lot of the old stuff is bump, bump, bump. And it's too bad they wouldn't do just one side and do it right, so we'd have one good side to travel on. Most of our sidewalks in the north end where I live at are disgraceful. Getting off one side, going across the street and trying to get on the other 90% of the time you're on the street if you want to be able to drive your wheelchair.
Hey, I'll try and answer that. So yeah, absolutely. The sidewalks in the north end are old. The north end is old for sure. We try to revitalize as much as possible each year. And what you see is typically what we call spot repairs. So there's a few deteriorated slabs in a stretch, and they go in to try to repair those until a more comprehensive reconstruction project can replace the whole thing. If you have a specific street or section, feel free to reach out to us. We can provide you an update as to when we anticipate it being repaired or replaced. But yeah, what you're seeing is spot repairs.
It just really seems so you're wasting a lot of money patching instead of doing one section. And it's good then for everybody, you know?
Yep, no, absolutely. And like I said, it's just between reconstruction or we're just repairing what's deteriorated and needs to be broken because it's basically a tripping hazard or something like that for a person walking.
Okay, viewing or virtual? Any further questions?
Sorry for the delay there. Bill Jordan asks for Steve York and Jennifer Fisher, the accessible parking and sidewalk aprons in HRM present difficulties that have not been addressed. Can you speak to the following? 1, the poor locations, often tree impaired, wheelchair inaccessible, and inclines to the sidewalk. 2, no maintenance. The resident had a FOIA record returned showing none since 1989 construction. And 3, construction is whimsical. HRM design red book frequently not followed. Ditto to the NS government requirements. And lastly, for the coordinator, why is your email, phone number so difficult to use and trace responsibility for a particular disabled service?
Yeah, sure. So the accessible parking spaces, they do have a standard. I'm not sure exactly what they are. Our parking management group looks after that. In terms of maintenance, the maintenance requirements for winter, they're all typically, I believe, on P1 streets, so they fall under the 12-hour service standard, along with the sidewalk in that area. If their resident is experiencing any issues with, chipped concrete or trees impacting the parking space, we just ask them to contact us at 311, and a service request will be created, and we'll be happy to send someone out to take a look.
Yeah, of course. So Bill Jordan wanted to know for the coordinator, why is your email and phone number so difficult to use and to trace responsibility for a particular disabled service?
Okay.
Oh, is that for parks? Like, is that for inclusion?
Unfortunately, I have no further information.
Okay.
It just says for coordinator. I
If
apologize.
someone is looking to get in contact with inclusion and Jen or myself as inclusion and accessibility specialists, we do have an email address that both of us check that is inclusion@halifax.ca, and people are welcome to use that to get in contact. And we do our best to return emails within 1 to 2 business days.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. That was a viewing and/or virtual, correct? Okay, so now we are back to here in the hall. Any questions?
Yes, Janet Daltonville again. I just wanted to know, is there a set rule for disabled rooms in hotels? Say, I was thinking if I'd like to go and stay overnight at a hotel with my daughter, what I expect to get for a disabled accommodation? Is it set?
So HRM doesn't have any accommodations. We don't handle hotels and that, so I'm not versed in that code. But in the building code, there is a set standard that they're supposed to be building to. And of course, it would be code of the day. So if the building's older, it's going to be the code of that time. So that would dictate it. And that's the best knowledge I have for you right now, but that would be something potentially you could go to the province for more information on how they, I don't even know if the word license is the right way, but how they do that. So I know any new buildings are being, they're at a very high standard in certain amount of space around the bed, roll-in access to showers and that. And I don't know if I can speak for either of you if you've had any experience with that, but I know a lot of people I deal with through the accessibility committee say a hotel says it's fully accessible and they arrive there and they can barely get through the front door. So this is part of what the Rick Hansen Foundation is trying to do as well. So they want to go out, rate these buildings, give you a standard so then you can go look at that building and say, does this building meet the needs? So again, depending on each hotel, it's going to be different, but there is a standard. What it is, I'm not familiar with.
I'm really amazed that if you call them and ask them if they have an accessible, if they're accessible, they say, oh yes, we have elevators and the rooms are large. And basically that's all they really care about. And as far as anything else, like accommodations for the size of the toilet, grab bars, walk-in shower, I did check some of them, and there was only one in the city that passed my inspection today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, our viewing and virtual locations. Do we have any questions?
Thank you, Chair. This one is from Milena Kazanavicius. What are you doing to ensure blind and partially sighted people are safe and respected when they go on to Halifax Transit? What training is in place?
So when a conventional operator first starts at Halifax Transit, they go through 7 weeks of training. Part of that training is both practical driving the bus, as well as in-house training on a number of different issues, first aid, customer service, conflict resolution, and there are several sessions dealing with persons with disabilities. A representative from CNIB sometimes comes out and talks to the operators. We also have videos from CNIB. We have a whole session on persons with disabilities for wheelchairs. I know Halifax Transit introduced within the past year, if I'm not mistaken, the location identification, so that when a person who is sight impaired is on the bus, the stops are announced, stop annunciations are on the bus. If I'm not mistaken, the guides are as well. Are Braille provided? Are the guides Braille provided? I'm just trying to remember. No, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Viewing and virtual. Do we have any more questions?
We have another one from the virtual Q&A. This one is also from Milena Kazanavicius. I apologize for the pronunciation. Does HRM have plans to extend the 311 services?
So currently we are working with our ICT department. We're working with the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Society of Nova Scotia to work at adding in possibly video relay service. There's some issues and challenges around that with a 311 or a 3-digit telephone number. So we're still at the early stages of that. We're also working on chat to add in, so those services would be extended probably in the 2022 to 3 fiscal is when we have it for research. I don't have a date of implementation yet because there's still some technology things we have to work around.
Thank you so much.
Okay, questions from here in the hall?
Once again, my name is Melanie Gaunt. Steve, you know when I was talking about how we don't want to be an afterthought? Disability not wanting to be an afterthought? When I just wanted to remind you that when she was asking you about the sidewalks and the cutouts, you had said that it was, you know, when it was bothering a person who was walking. That sort of answers what I'm trying to say, doesn't it?
Yeah, what I basically says a tripping hazard, and that's just a term we use to describe a depression or a crack in the sidewalk that whether somebody trips over it or someone in a wheelchair or other mobility aid strikes it, somebody could be using a white cane and hooks it, something like that. It's just basically a term we use.
Okay.
It's definitely not
I didn't,
for that reason.
yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Okay, virtual and viewing. Any questions coming in from?
Thank you, Chair. This is also from Milena Kazanavicius. What is the plan for consultation in the future with the disability community? Why aren't we consulted with currently, and can you commit to changing this?
I seem like the one that's going to answer all the odd questions here tonight. In a broader sense, the Accessibility Advisory Committee is that vehicle for the citizens. So we use that as a tool to bring concerns to the committee and then on through to council, through the Executive Standing Committee. And so we do some regular public consultation on certain aspects, and we try to engage certain populations if we need to. But I guess my direct answer to that would be, if you've got a concern that you don't feel maybe if you could bring it through either in writing through the clerk's office, that will come back to our committee, or I believe the list of the members are on the website as well. You could reach out to them directly. I think the chair, particularly has a ability to get information directly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be not having more information from the virtual question, but that's the goal of the Accessibility Advisory Committee for HRM.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're currently doing engagement right now with organizations serving the community to talk about what their needs are for travel training. So that's currently happening.
I would also just like to add, Jennifer and myself are reaching out to a variety of community organizations that serve a variety of people to kind of touch base around what they're seeing in programming and what they're seeing in kind of the recreation aspect, and then what they would like to see, because both of us are new to this program, so a part of our this job. So part of our kind of researching and finding out what the community needs is reaching out to a variety of different community organizations, including community organizations that serve people with disabilities.
Thank you.
Okay. We are back around to here in the hall, I believe.
I'm sorry?
Hi, I'm Anna Kwan, and this question is particularly for the Parks and Rec Inclusion and Accessibility Specialist, but anyone might answer it. What kinds of things are you doing to improve accessibility to programs and services for people living with mental health challenges and psychiatric histories?
So I think what we're doing right now is we're in kind of the level of just kind of engaging community partners around what their needs are, and we're kind of working, like I guess I would call it the consultation phase, but also making sure that our staff are well trained and well versed in kind of in mental health and mental illness and what that looks like and how they can offer a basic level of support. So one of those things would be making sure that we're offering a mental health first aid to some of our to people as they're coming through training, including our summer staff for our summer programming. But I also personally have worked in the mental health field before coming into Parks and Recreation. So it's certainly, I've been reaching out to colleagues and people who I've worked with and people who, to make sure that we're offering space to folks if they're interested in running programs like different community organizations. And in addition, we do have our affordable access program if someone is having a mental health challenge and also having a financial barrier that can kind of help them to get access to their programs to be able to kind of use some of our facilities as a way to kind of help to improve mental health through their physical health.
Okay. Viewing and virtual, are we still getting questions from locations?
We are, Chair, thank you. Sean Clark asks, when a bus route goes on a detour, what happens to a visually impaired person who misses their stop? Is there any assistance for them, or are they supposed to find their way on their own?
That's a good question. When the bus goes on tour to detour, the operator is always there to answer any questions for any passengers that are on the bus. It really would just be a matter of asking the operator where they are. Talk to the operator when you're getting on. Let them know where you want to go, and most of the operators are very cooperative, and they'll help with that. The detours can't be helped. As you know, we have a major one going on right now on Spring Garden Road. And the buses just have to take the routes that are available to them, and detours do happen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We are, I believe that was viewing and virtual together. Do we have any from either one? And I said, yes, here in the hall, proposed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jerry Post, and I've been attending these sessions for the past 8 years. And, we've come a long way, and of course, we'll be here 8 years from today, and we'll still be complaining about things. But I must say, yeah, we've come a long way. And an example is the Cogswell redevelopment project, right? Rick Henson, gold certified. So anything going in there has to be designed to the highest standards. So that's an incredible start, and I just have to compliment, the staff and, of course, the council. Now, I have a suggestion, a cost-saving suggestion for Halifax Transit, and in return, I'd like a little favor. And the suggestion I have is, and you've mentioned it, when I first became disabled, I was exclusively using the Access to Bus service. And I found it very, very frustrating because of the, the booking schedule system that you have. And at the time, I didn't know about, the accessible conventional transit system. No one ever told me. And as well, when you're first disabled, you're a little nervous, So Access to Bus is very accommodating. It's a wonderful service, if you can get the booking. And then going on transit is a little scary, so I've been suggesting over the years, let's have a volunteer buddy system. Like I would volunteer to help someone first. The suggestion I have, though, is, you want to deflect people who can away from Access to Bus to the conventional system. And a suggestion I have is offer everyone that's currently registered on Access to Bus with a 1-year free pass to travel the conventional service, but also provide that sort of buddy system, support system to give people the comfort to men. And hopefully they'll get into the pattern, as I have now. I haven't used Access to Bus for 5 years. I just use the conventional system. And it's a huge cost saving to you, and it opens things up for those that really need Access to Bus. So that's the suggestion. In return, what I think would be wonderful, you've all seen the wonderful viewing platform at Peggy's Cove. Why not have a seasonal service out there, not just for the disabled, but for everybody that can't afford a car or a taxi to go out there? And same with provincial beaches, that where they are within reach of the current sort of boundary, your service boundary. So that's what I would ask for in return, and I think that would be welcome, not just by the disabled community, but by many, many Nova Scotians, and of course people here that live here who cannot afford a car. So thank you.
I think Sheryl can speak to the travel training program. So those are great suggestions. I believe there are two councillors here tonight that I'm sure have listened to what you've said, and it would be something, of course, that would be at the pleasure of council because it is outside of the territory that we're responsible for. But yes, the travel training program, I think it's very exciting. It's something that Cheryl's group is working on right now. It's going to be something that we will take to the schools, we'll take to new immigrants into the city of Halifax. We'll take it to new users of Accessibus and introduce to them the different means of transportation that Halifax Regional Municipality offers, the ferry services, the conventional services. That's one of the reasons why over the next 5 years, one of the plans is to convert as many as the landing pads to full accessibility so that the conventional bus, although it's low floor accessible now, it's not low floor accessible to everywhere that someone wants to go. A small part of that is something that I'm excited about. It's something that I've been trying to get for the past year, and that's a dedicated mobile supervisor for Accessibus. This person will be an ambassador to Accessibus, so all new clients will be visited, introduced to Accessibus face-to-face, explain to them how to use the services, explain to them what the options are when Accessibus is not available. So these are things that we haven't done in the past, and I think it will make a real difference to those people that want to use Accessibus and want to use conventional services. You're right, it's very scary. I'm sure, I've been to cities where I've used transit, and I found it challenging in a new city. I can imagine how people find our conventional system if they're new to our city. So we need to talk to them and introduce that to them and alleviate some of those fears that they may have. And I'll take you out to Piggy's Cove myself if we can get it happen.
All right, viewing and virtual. Any questions coming through?
Thank you, Chair. This one is a follow-up from Bill Jordan for Steve York. Bill asked for Steve to please address the apron maintenance for Edward Street, NS Arm, for Martello Street, and for Spring Garden Road opposite the professional building. All have trees, steep inclines, and have been complained about by the residents since October 2019. In addition to that, Martello Street, Fenwick Street aprons suffer decay and cracks.
Yeah, thank you. We can definitely look into that and see where the status is on the service request.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We are back to here in the hall. Any questions here?
My name is Rhonda Moulton again. Some of the posts where you have the buttons at the crosswalk to press, whoever put them there is quite able to walk around them. Pretty near, 70% of what I run into, I can't get around to push the button. The corner of Young Street and Roby has a couple of bad ones. They're really bad out in Bears Lake. You have maybe from here to that chair in mud or something to get to the post. The last 2 times I was out there, I had to go on the lights and couldn't even get near the buttons. And these things only go for 20 miles. This is what this one goes for. I don't know what anybody else's goes for here. And everything is so inconvenient for us. That's the problem with these buttons.
Thank you. So a lot of what you're explaining or describing, are the old retrofitted intersections where, there's never really the thought of a pedestrian push button or a button to change the light. And now the new standards and the new signals are much more closer and accessible to everyone. So it's a quick reach over and touch the button to cross. Now a lot of those will be replaced in due time, often with an intersection upgrade.
Roby and Young Street had a lot of work done on it. An awful lot of work the last 2 years.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it in person to see. Our traffic department looks at the safe placement of them, and they take a lot of considerations into account for the location, but it's something we can definitely look into.
Okay. Viewing and virtual sessions, do we have any?
Thank you, Chair. This is a comment from Tammy Sampson. Tammy remarked that the wheelchair spots on conventional transit should not be direct across from one another. It is very difficult to get a wheelchair turned around with another wheelchair directly beside or in front of you.
Thank you for the comment. The buses are, unfortunately, they are standard retrofit. That's the design of the bus, and it meets the safety standards that the buses have to follow. So unfortunately, that is the placement of the wheelchairs.
Okay. Anything else from there? Viewing and virtual? Okay. Back to here in the hall. Any questions? Okay, we'll go to viewing and virtual. Anything coming in?
Thank you, Chair. There is one from viewing and virtual. Lisa Snyder asks, you may have already received this, but just continuing on, why not have videos with text, transcript, captions, auto description, and sign language that show people the transit options? This would give some people much more confidence in the system.
Could you repeat that?
Sorry about that. So this is from Lisa Snyder. Why not have videos with text, transcripts, captions, auto description, and sign language that show people the transit options? This would give people much more confidence.
Thank you. It's a great suggestion. I'll have to get back to that. It's not something I can answer.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, viewing in virtual and or the hall.
I have more for you, Chair. This one is from Sean Clark. Sean asks, given the heat waves out west last year showed how vulnerable we disabled people are to temperature change, is there any plans to give access through a regular bus service to ocean beaches, especially as we are experiencing more and more heat waves as climate change affects our globes? This would create more accessibility to anyone who can't afford a car.
Thank you for the question. As mentioned earlier to Mr. Post, the services for Halifax Transit are provided at the pleasure of council. If services are to be expanded, that would have to be something that council would approve.
Thank you.
Actually, can I comment also on that? That might be incorrect, David, but you can correct me. I believe Albert Lake, Chocolate Lake, and Penhorn Lake all serviced directly by buses. So those are all beaches that could easily be handled on the conventional service today for a client today.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, here in the hall. Okay.
Janet Domville again. If those beaches are serviced by regular buses, are they also serviced by Accessibus? They are? Okay, thank you.
Okay, back to our virtuals. Are we getting questions from our virtuals?
Thank you, Chair. This one is from Bill Jordan. Bill Jordan asks, how is safe passage policy in blocking sidewalks for new construction enforced by HRM?
Yeah, I'll try and answer it. So sidewalks are not to be blocked. If they are through what we call an encroachment permit, we expect that a viable option be present, whether that's a crossing and marking at the intersection where a person could cross, say, safely, or through the construction mitigation plan where the developer is obligated to provide a secondary means of access for that section.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, questions from here in the hall? Okay, questions from our locations or virtual?
Thank you, Chair. We do have another one from Jen Powley. Jen asks, why are the lights not automatic?
Maybe a point of clarification. I'm assuming she's reading the crosswalk lights aren't automatic.
That would be my assumption,
Yeah,
but there is
so,
no further information.
Steve, I don't know if you know this or not, but I believe in the downtown cores of both Halifax and Dartmouth, they are, but they are required to push buttons outside the core, and I'm not sure the service standard around that.
Majority of them downtown, in Dartmouth as well, don't require the what they call the bag button to be activated for the lights. However, outside of the core or some of the more significant intersections, it is required.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from the hall? Questions from viewing or virtual?
Thank you, Chair. This one is from Liz Dowell. Liz would like the city to do something about the intersection of Brunswick and Duke, especially the northeastern corner. It is quite steep, and it is hazardous for any wheelchair user, pedestrian, or someone pushing a pram or carriage.
I'll try and answer that. So I know the Brunswick Street section is going through a planning process right now to looking at options to revitalize the street. I think there's a survey that closed not long ago, or it could perhaps still be open. So they're looking to redesign that section, and hopefully they try and do something with that area. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, back here to the hall. Or do we have any questions? Okay, back to our viewing locations. Any questions coming in?
Thank you, Chair. This one is from Carol Arsenault. My landlord raised my rent above the cap this year for building improvements and built a non-accessible deck. Why is this allowed, and does new construction have to be accessible?
Yeah, that's all through the building code with the provincial government. Municipality isn't handling the housing stuff, so I can't comment on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we will issue the building permit, but we don't issue the rent control stuff, so.
Okay, thanks.
Hey. Questions from the hall? Viewing in virtual locations. Any questions coming in?
Thank you, Chair. This one is a comment from Melina Kazanovicius. Melina wanted to note that HRM sends their most amicable, soft-spoken people to answer questions to the population of people with disabilities. These individuals have no idea what is actually happening. Case in point, Melina's been training new bus drivers for 15 years on accessibility and commented that the rep seemed to not know about that.
Do we have any questions from the hall?
Yeah, Anna Kwan here. It's a little bit related to Melena's query, I guess, or comment. Sometimes when I call 311 and I'm usually calling about transit, I get the feeling the person answering my question is not a transit user and really doesn't have much idea of what I'm asking. And well, I won't give the example from the other day, but I'm just curious as how many people in your departments are actually people with disabilities, for example, who would have some idea of what accessibility means from a lived experience point of view. And so I don't know if you can give me a percentage or tell me how many staff you have that are people with disabilities.
So we have been following the diversity and inclusion and hiring policies that HRM has implemented, and a recent posting that we did for 311 agents was designated. We're currently going through the process and have 30 successful applicants. I can't tell you where we are with the process because we just did the testing and the review, so the interviews have not happened. I will tell you on transit, we have a trainer at 311 that trains all new agents. We work very, very closely with transit, and we do probably about 2 weeks of training on transit inquiries. They are one of our higher number of inquiries, a higher percentage. So there's about 2 weeks of training. Transit currently sends people in. We have someone coming in next week for the new transit picks. And they actually work with our agents, walk around the floor, provide video training. So if ever you're getting information that you're not pleased with, please ask to speak with a supervisor. It may be that it's a newer agent. They may not be as tenured as some, but a supervisor will always follow up and make sure you get correct and accurate information.
Follow up just to ask about the number of people with disabilities working in your sections or departments?
Specific to 311?
Anyone on the panel.
Sorry.
Everyone on the panel.
Viewing locations, virtual, anything?
Thank you, Chair. The following is from Elizabeth McCormick. Elizabeth stated, as a person that does not have a disability, I am watching this session and how this community is taking suggestions to improve the lives of persons with disabilities, and this is important. What is HRM doing to actively recruit persons with disabilities for committees and also recruit persons with disabilities for HRM employment? Do you happen to have stats for a number of employees that have disabilities that work for HRM? We know that the disabled community is underemployed. We would hope that HRM leads the way in employment opportunities. These employees would be able to give immediate feedback as they would need to use transit and drive their wheelchair down the sidewalk to get to work. It sounds like HRM facilities would be the ideal place for persons with disabilities. Elizabeth also wanted to give kudos to implementing the Rick Hansen standard for all HRM sites.
We don't have anybody here tonight to speak from hiring practices and that. I know we do have an active program in it, but a concern I'd have with, even if I did know what percentages, I don't know if that's a piece of public information I would be allowed to give, privacy reasons. So I don't have a number, but even if I did, I'd have to go back and see if I was legally allowed to provide that. But I know we do have an active process right now in trying to have more higher diversity in our positions across the organization. And I think if you were to go to the job posting page we have, you would see that identified in a lot of job postings now and preferred candidates and stuff like that. So,
thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
Okay, questions from the hall? Okay, questions from our viewing locations?
Thank you, Chair. This is a follow-up from Jen Powley regarding the automated lights. Jen asks, why do pedestrians need to beg to cross anywhere?
So I'm not the correct person to answer this, but I'll try and take a stab at it anyway. So from my understanding, this went to council maybe 6 or 8 months ago, where they discussed implementing this, because initially it was, I believe, just for the peak hours, and then they switched it to 24 hours a day in the downtown Halifax and Dartmouth cores. And along with that, there's some other rationale as to why it wasn't implemented in other intersections outside the city core, but I unfortunately don't have the information.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Questions from the hall? Okay, questions from our locations?
We have nothing further, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we are finished with that session. It is 20 after 8, thereabouts. And I would like to thank you for participating with us tonight. We had a robust session of questions and answers. Thank you to our business representatives who have joined us to provide our updates and respond to the questions, comments from our community. To the participants who participated tonight, know that your concerns have been heard and that your staff will continue to work on the issues raised. Thank you to everybody who provided feedback, either in person or virtually. Thank you to the staff and volunteers who worked to make tonight's event possible, and to the ASL and deaf interpreters, for the captioning staff, and for Halifax Public Libraries for partnering with us. The minutes from the Town Hall will be discussed at our next month's Accessibility Advisory Committee, and the feedback received will be passed along in a report to the Executive Standing Committee. To all participants at our in-person locations who did not get the chance to ask their questions or provide feedback, please provide your name. Please provide them in writing at the Q&A table, either here at Paul Regan Hall or with staff at either of the two libraries, Tantallon or Muscataba Harbor. For participants who have left their questions on Zoom, follow-up will be sent to the email provided when you registered. And just as an addition to our evening tonight, I'd like to take the opportunity to recognize some of our special guests. We have the Honorable Steve Craig, member of the Nova Scotia Legislature for Sackville-Cobequid. We have Councillor Wayne Mason. We have Jerry Post, former ED of the Accessibility Directorate. And we also have members of our Accessibility Advisory Committee who also serve on the council. We have Councillor Russell and Councillor Daigle Gammon. So thank you for your assistance and your presence. Thank you very much. And if I may, I'd like to call this meeting to a close at 8:20 p.m. Thank you all.